The plant kingdom. There are plants that grow at the top of high, rocky mountains, under the oceans, in damp, shady places, and in dry, sunny places. We can classify plants into two groups: flowering plants and non-flowering plants. Flowering plants can be angiosperms or gymnosperms. Angiosperms. These plants have strong roots, leaves, a stem, and flowers. The seeds develop inside the flower. The plants can produce fruit. Gymnosperms. These plants have strong roots, a stem, and long, thin leaves. Gymnosperms have small flowers, but they don't produce any fruit. The plant's seeds develop in cones. Non-flowering plants: algae, mosses, and ferns. Algae. These plants are in or near to water. They don't have true roots, stems, leaves, or flowers, and they don't produce seeds. Mosses. These green plants live on land. They have very simple roots, stems, and thin leaves, but they don't have any flowers, and they don't produce any seeds or fruit. They live in damp, shady places. Ferns. Most ferns grow in tropical rainforests where it's damp and shady. These plants don't have flowers and they don't produce seeds or fruit. They have large leaves called fronds. Ferns have roots and strong stems which grow under the ground. Characteristics of the plant kingdom. Plants don't feed on other organisms. They make their own food through photosynthesis. Plants can't move from place to place, but they can react to light, temperature, and water. Most plants reproduce by growing flowers, which then produce seeds. Plants' parts are green because their cells contain a substance called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is needed for plant nutrition. Parts of a plant cell: cell membrane, cell wall, nucleus, chloroplast, vacuole, and cytoplasm. The nucleus controls the functions of the cell, such as reproduction. The chloroplasts contain chlorophyll. During photosynthesis, plant food is made in the chloroplasts. The strong cell wall protects the cell. The cell membrane controls what enters and leaves the cell. Cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance where chemical reactions happen. The vacuole contains water and minerals, which the plant needs to grow. What do different parts of plants do? The roots hold the plant in the ground. They absorb water and minerals needed for nutrition. They have got tiny hairs, which are called root hairs. The stem supports the plant. Water and minerals travel through the stem. It distributes the food to the other parts of the plant. There are herbaceous stems and woody stems. Leaves are the part where the plant makes its food by photosynthesis. They contain the chlorophyll. The blade is the flat part of the leaf. The petiole joins the blade to the stem. Veins in the blade support the leaf and carry water and minerals. On the underside of the blade, there are tiny pores called stomata. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged, and they pass through stomata. Plant nutrition. Plants can produce their own food. This process is called photosynthesis. The roots absorb water and minerals from the soil. Plant cells, called xylem cells, carry these nutrients as sap through the stem to the leaves. Leaves absorb carbon dioxide through their stomata. Carbon dioxide is absorbed and oxygen is released. The chlorophyll in the chloroplast traps energy from the sun. With this energy, the plant turns the water, minerals, and carbon dioxide into a food called glucose. Plant cells, called phloem cells, carry the glucose in phloem sap to the rest of the plant. The Venus flytrap is a carnivorous plant, but it can also make its own food. It catches insects because it doesn't obtain sufficient nutrients from the soil. It has to supplement its diet by absorbing the nutrients in insects. The saguaro cactus grows in a hot, dry environment. It has adapted in order to survive. It has a large, thick stem which can expand to store water. The stem has sharp thorns to prevent animals from eating the plant. Flowers have brightly colored petals that attract insects. When an insect flies from flower to flower, it pollinates the flower. As the insect feeds, pollen grains stick to its body. When the insect flies to another flower, it leaves some pollen grains there. Flowering plant reproduction. Most flowering plants use sexual reproduction. The male organs are called stamens. Each stamen has two parts, a long, thin filament and an anther. The anther is where the plant produces pollen. Pollen is the male reproductive cell. The female organ is called the pistil. The pistil has four parts: the ovary, the female reproductive cells, which are called ovules, and a long thin tube called the style, which connects the ovary to the stigma. The stigma is sticky and catches the pollen. In many flowering plants, pollen from the stamen of one plant has to travel to the stigma of another plant. This process is called pollination. In cross-pollination, pollen from stamens sticks to a bee as it visits a flower to collect food. The bee travels to another plant of the same type. Pollen on the bee sticks to a pistil of a flower on the other plant. The pollen then travels down the style and into the ovary. When the pollen and an ovule join together, they make a seed. This process is called fertilization. Asexual reproduction. Ferns and mosses are examples of non-flowering plants. They don't produce seeds. They reproduce using spores. A spore is a cell, and it grows inside a spore case. There are some plants which grow special stems above the ground. These stems are called stolons. When the stolons touch the ground, they grow roots and become a new plant. For example, a strawberry plant. Other plants grow special stems under the ground called tubers. The tubers grow into new plants with roots and leaves. Potatoes use tubers to reproduce. We can also grow new plants from cuttings. We can cut off a part of a plant and use it to grow a new plant.